Welcome to another Meta Snapshot breakdown. The latest balance patch has shaken things up by hitting a lot of the top decks in the meta. Rogue was the biggest loser, with several cards changed due to how oppressive the class was previously. With Rogue being toned down and other cards seeing changes as well, the meta has started redeveloping. And on top of this, the newest mini set should release sometime in the coming months, so only time will tell where the game will be. Before we dive into our deep look at Tier 1, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to be kept up to date with all of our Hearthstone content. Now let's begin. Leading off Tier 1 this time is Face Hunter. As we've said time and time again, Hunter truly cannot be kept down. No matter what changes the meta brings, Hunter is usually on the line of too strong, thus dodging any nerfs and maintaining its dominance. Luckily for us, there are decks that can beat Hunter, so it probably won't stay dominant for too long. Face Hunter continues to be the tried and true face deck, making use of cheap minions and burn spells to close out the game. Its best matchup comes from the previously nerfed Poison Rogue, proving that Rexxar continues to be better than Valeera. This matchup was bad for Rogue before, but now with the nerf to Scabs and Cloak of Shadows, the Rogue has even less survival tools to get back online. As for bad matchups, Face Hunter continues to struggle against other aggressive decks, such as Aggro Druid, or against decks with near endless removal and healing, such as Fell Demon Hunter. The only other deck making an appearance in Tier 1 this time around is Hand Warlock. This archetype may have fallen from popularity briefly following the repeated nerfs it faced, but thanks to some of its bad matchups being nerfed, it finally found its place back in the top tier again. Hand Warlock remains one of the more difficult decks to pilot, and it is usually seen in the hands of either avid Warlock players or professional players. We strongly suggest playing quite a few games with the archetype before calling it quits, as it'll take some time to get the hang of things. Hand Warlock typically makes use of the quest, the Demon Seed, to have inevitability, and while working towards the quest reward, it can use cards such as Flesh Giants to pressure the opponent out. Hand Warlock has a good matchup against board-based decks due to how much removal it has in its arsenal, making matchup like Beast Druid feel free for you. As for its bad matchups, burn-based decks such as Face Hunter or Poison Rogue tend to be nigh unwinnable. They rely on near-perfect draws from you and on bad draws from your opponent. Tier 1 is a bit shorter than usual this time due to the standard meta being much more balanced. As the meta lives its life, it's possible that new outlier decks will be found, but for the time being, these two are the top dogs of standard. As always, we'll now be taking a look at the top 3 decks within the second tier. Don't forget to check out the rest of the report over at tempostorm.com for a deeper dive into the standard meta. Now let's take a look at the king of Tier 2. Leading off Tier 2 this time is Fell Demon Hunter. This is another archetype that can be difficult to pilot, but it's rewarding when mastered. Fell Demon Hunter makes use of the early removal and healing at Illidan's disposal to stall the game until it can look to close out the game with either its hero card, Kurtrus, Demon Render, or Jace Darkweaver for a huge tempo swing. This archetype practically runs every healing card, giving you the time to stall as needed and enough threats and cycle to get to the end game. It performs best against decks such as Aggro Druid and Face Hunter, who struggle against both removal and healing, practically your entire deck's purpose. As for bad matchups, things such as Ramp Druid feel very difficult to beat, as they don't rely on threats like other decks and can easily out-armor your potential burn where needed. The second deck showing up in this tier is Burn Shaman. This archetype is much similar to Face Hunter in the way that it aims to use burn spells to take your opponent down from high health totals. Unlike Face Hunter though, it tends to not use many minions, and instead opts for a cycle and freeze plan to stall the game out while it amasses its damage. This archetype pops up about once an expansion, so it'll need some time in the field to see if it's a fad or a real thing. Burn Shaman is another deck that does well against Hand Warlock, as their self-inflicted damage only helps your game plan out. You also tend to do well against board-based decks like Beast or Aggro Druid due to how much stall and removal you have access to. Burn Shaman has a very rough time against both Ramp Druid and Poison Rogue. However, Druid has access to enough armor gain to lock you out of the fight, and if the Rogue is running Cloak of Shadows, you'll have virtually no way to damage them, making it a massive uphill battle. The last deck we're looking at today is OTK Shaman. This archetype is one that many players theorycraft about, but struggle to find a shell that worked with it. Finally, players have begun to use the stall and freeze effects Shaman is known for to bridge the early and late game together, allowing you to kill your opponent. The combo is simple. Before you have 10 mana, play a corrupted Dunk Tank and Circus Medic to put the cards in the Yusharaj pool, and then use Bolner, Lightning Bloom, and Yusharaj to generate nearly infinite damage. This deck can be hard to pilot, but it's rewarding as locking your opponent out of the game can be oddly satisfying. OTK Shaman's best matchup comes from some of the more minion-based decks, like Libram Paladin, as your freeze effects can neutralize any threats they may have while you piece together your combo. Your bad matchups are typically against decks that can either race you with burn or use disruption tools to stall the game out while they kill you, such as Fell Demon Hunter. Thank you for tuning into our standard meta snapshot breakdown. We're very excited to see what the future may bring for Hearthstone and are eagerly awaiting the upcoming mini set and then the year's rotation. If you've enjoyed our look into the standard meta, please be sure to subscribe to our channel and to leave a like on the video to be kept up to date with all of our Hearthstone content. We truly appreciate your support and cannot wait to see you again. We'll see you next time.